In this video, we're going to talk about one simple way to reduce user churn with your no-code app. So how can you make sure users are sticking around for the long haul with your app? Now, make sure you stick around until the end because this is a really simple tactic, but it can make a significant difference with your app, with your user base, the size of your user base, and ultimately with the revenue you bring in with your business. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help non-technical entrepreneurs build custom apps so they can start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses all without coding. All right, so we're over on the whiteboard here because I want to draw this out so you can visually see how this tactic can work for your app. So you see an arrow on the screen here, and on the very left side, we have the start of a user's journey through your app. So really, over here is where a new user is registering for your app. And on the right side, you can see we have the actual arrow, which shows us that this line is ongoing. So what we're going to put over there is that by this point, your user is retained. Okay, so left side is when a user is registering. The right side is when we can consider a user to be retained, meaning they are likely going to stick around for a longer period of time versus registering for the app and immediately either deleting their account or deleting the app or just no longer using it anymore. Now, I want to be clear that this timeline, the amount of time between when a user is registered and when a user is retained, this is going to vary person to person, app to app. So I'm not going to put a hard timeline on this. It's going to take some testing and some measuring on your side as you start bringing users on board. And you can do that. It's not a hard thing to do. You can just start tracking how long your users are typically staying on board, your churn rate, and you can pinpoint when you can generally consider a user to be retained. Now, what we want to do is make sure we can get as many users from here to here as absolutely possible with your no-code app. Now, there's two tactics that I see people using to try to get users on board and keep them on board. One of these is the wait and see what happens approach. And this is where you let users come on board, right? You've built the product, you're kind of hands off, users come on board, they use the app or they don't. They use the app, they stay on for a certain period of time or they don't. You just kind of give them the product and wait and see what happens. Now, when you haven't launched an app before, you haven't grown an app or an app-based business before, it can kind of feel like, what else is there to do? You've built the product, now you just need people to use it. But there are actually things you can do to make sure that you're not just waiting and seeing, that you are actually proactively keeping your users on board, retaining them for longer and retaining more of them. So the other approach, which I want you to start thinking about and implementing into your app, is the win and see approach. So wait and see versus win and see. And this is where we get to the tactic that's going to help you reduce your user churn in a very, very easy way. And really all this involves is during this time frame. And remember, this is something that you're going to have to do some testing on to see how long that time frame is for you. But during that time frame, you want to orchestrate as many wins for your users as you can, or just earlier wins for your users. Now, what is a win? Well, a win can be lots of different things, but essentially it's something that a user is accomplishing in your app or with your app. So they are achieving some sort of goal or completing some sort of process that benefits them in some way. That's a win. Now, early on, as soon as a user registers, if you can start orchestrating these wins and enabling your users to have early wins, they're automatically going to reach this retained part of the drawing here. They're going to reach that more and your users are going to stick around for longer. So what I like to look at is how can I kind of pump wins into this early stage. So maybe that means adding a win right here in their journey. So they register and immediately you take them through the process so that they can achieve a quick win. It can also be a series of wins. And again, this is going to involve some testing on your side, measuring to pinpoint what really works best for you and for your app. You might find that you need to orchestrate one win right at the start, and then another, and maybe even, 5 wins within the first week, within the first 2 weeks, maybe within the first month. It really depends. Now, a rule of thumb, not a blanket statement, but a rule of thumb is if your app is more generalized, if it's at a lower price point, so it's not a specialized app for a very specific user type, maybe more consumer focused, and maybe something that people aren't going to be using every single day. It's not going to be playing a role in their business or things like that. Then you might want to orchestrate these wins earlier on, because attention spans are very short these days. And so if your app is not going to be, it's not going to play a vital role in people's lives, well, then you need to make sure you are doing things really early on to get people stuck in the app, to keep them on. If your app is a robust business tool and maybe orchestrating 5 wins within the first week is a lot, well, maybe you need to spread that out then. And that's okay. Remember, it's not a blanket statement. It's going to depend on your app and it'll take some testing. So when you start bringing users on board, if you, for example, orchestrate this first win, well, how does that affect your retention rate? And that's something you can measure. And then if you add another win in, how does that affect your retention rate? And how many until you level out, or how frequently until you level out? Okay, now going back to what a win actually is, like what are some examples of this? It depends on the type of app, but this could be as simple as having a user share something. Maybe share with their social media followers, maybe share with their contacts or their colleagues. So they're taking something from the app and sharing it outside of themselves or their own processes. That's using the app, sharing the app, and it gets them more ingrained in the process. It can be something like displaying data, right? If you're thinking, well, my app doesn't involve sharing, that's okay. There's lots of ways to go about this. Maybe it's simply inputting data. Maybe you're building a dashboard app. Maybe it's getting a user to display a certain data set that they can actually use for their business. Maybe they can use it to make decisions. And that's a win. If you get them to display this data that they can actually use, well, that's an easy win right there. So it could be something as simple as having the user register and guiding them or prompting them immediately to go ahead and input data so that it can automatically be displayed, right? So we don't have to have really complex, complicated processes to orchestrate these wins. It can be as simple as prompting someone in your onboarding just to take action within the app. Wins can be literal ROI from the app. If this is a business tool, even if it is a tool for consumers, I mean, if you are literally helping a user achieve a return on their investment, whether that's money, whether that's time early on, I mean, that's a very tangible win that can make a big impact in retention. It could be sharing information. It could be helping a user feel differently about their status, right? Or rewards. Maybe you are rewarding a user. Maybe you have a community-based app and you are rewarding users in a visible way, and that makes them feel like they've achieved a higher status within that community, for example, right? These are, again, I mean, take these as examples. Obviously, these aren't going to apply to every app, but you can even look at progress, right? If you have a business tool that's going to help users work through a process in their business, well, just making progress within that, right? That's a win. And if you can even visually show that progress, right? I mean, think about progress bars, why those even exist, or what those help with when we're talking about conversion or retention. So really, really simple things like this. Doesn't have to be all of them, could be one that is more recurring. Again, it depends on your app, but this is such an easy way to take people from registering and bring them to this point where you can consider them to be retained in your app. So what I want to encourage you to do right now is think through these examples we've gone through. And remember, these are just off the cuff examples. They might not apply to your app, and that's okay. Use them as examples that you can build on or mold for your own use cases. So think through these and come up with some of your own wins. And these might already be things that are going to be happening in your app with users, but you might just not have thought of them in this way yet. So I want you to think of what's one win you can help users achieve either right after registration, maybe within the first few days, that can help them then take the next step with your app, or come back and go into the next process with your app, or whatever it may be. And that's automatically going to help you retain your users better, reduce your user churn rate. So I hope this is helpful for you. And if you're moving into the stage where you have your app idea, and now you are planning it out, you're scoping it, you're making sure you're building the right things at the right time in the right order so that you can launch and test and grow in all the right ways. We have a free workshop that takes you through those steps, step by step, really by the hand. It's at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. It's going to help you perfect your scope. So make sure that, again, you're building the right things so that you're launching the right things. Learn more about no-code tools, see how you can use them with your business or for a new business, for example. So head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop to move forward with that and make sure that you're really building, planning, launching your app in the most strategic way possible. All right, I hope this was helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.